Alright guys, here we go. We got a little combination video we're going to do here. It's going to be two parts to the video. I'll end up pausing it, switching radios, and then coming back to it. If you haven't seen the video already, this is a 29. I guess we could call it the AD-29. It's had the AD-203 board installed into it, the power board. So it's if you want to know what this radio is doing, just go back and refer to the video. It does around 100 watts PEP and 30 watts average or so. That's what we're going to use going into the dummy load to test this 8-pill 454. This is not a brand new amp. It is in excellent condition. I could probably pass it off as brand new, but that's not how we do business. It doesn't have a scratch on it. Sold it to a good friend of mine, a good customer, and he ended up trading it back in. He got him a nice base steel tube amp, and he didn't need the 8-pill 454 anymore. So he didn't run this thing a whole lot. He didn't run it really hard, but he did trade it back in, and just trying to recoup a little money for him here and move this thing. So it's a nice amp. It doesn't have a brand new price tag on it. It's not a brand new amp, but it is very nice, and I would say as good as new. It still has the original tag from Fat Boy back here, and you see it, they recommend 75 to 125 watt PEP going into this thing. This radio does about 100 PEP, so we're going to be underdriving it a little bit. I will say this though, I have noticed this AD-203, it makes this thing draw some current. I don't know what it is about the way it drives it. Maybe it's the way that the little AD-203 is biased or whatever, but it really puts some drive to this thing. Even though it's not driving it with the maximum amount of power, it makes it draw some current. So that's why I want to use my Connex to test it as well, and show you that this thing will draw less current. Of course it'll draw less with a 50 watt radio, but generally they draw around 80 to 90 watts, or 80 to 90 amps. I'm going to tell you, this thing right here, it really makes it draw the current, and I'll show you guys here in a second. I've got a customer that's interested in this. He was interested in it and a 100 amp power supply that I've got. I've got a 15 volt 100 amp power supply. However, he may end up needing to go another route depending on what radio he's going to drive it with, because as I'm going to show you, this thing is drawing some current, and probably take a little more than 100 amps to run it all the time. So that being said, what we'll do, we'll just key it up and make sure our dead key is good. We've got a 2500 watt slug in there, and I'll get close to the meter here in a second and show you guys the output. But a 2500 watt slug, we want to get around 200 watts dead key, maybe a little more. That's about 240 or so. We'll rock with it there. 240 watt dead key overall. And I'm just going to audio into the mic. We're over here at 15 volts. I'm going to audio into the mic and show you guys what this thing's drawing. So it's drawing 95 to 100 amps. Just talking into it, radio check, radio check, radio check, radio check, radio check. You know, it's still drawing some good current. So like I said, depending on what you're going to hit this thing with, the radio makes all the difference in what kind of current these things draw. You'll hit it with one of these, definitely going to need, you know, 150 amp power supply or 120 amp power supply, which I also have a 120 available. It's not a Fat Boy, but it's a good power supply. But anyway, back on subject here. Just for kicks, let's see how much it draws at 14.6, if that changes anything. 14.5. Check, check, audio, check, check, audio, check, check, audio, check, check, audio, check, check, audio. That's more along the lines of what I'm used to seeing, between 85 and 95 amps. Obviously, if you have a 100 amp power supply, that's still drawing pretty good on it, but that's more along the lines of what I'm used to seeing out of these. So that 15 volts really made this thing start drawing some juice, and of course it probably made our radio do more, you know, than it was doing at 14.5. So you put more drive into it, more voltage coming to it, obviously seeing it draw close to 100 amps. But we're going to test it that way. Let's go back up over 15 volts, and we'll do output test, and then I will unhook the 29 and I'll hook the Connex up, and we'll do a current, see how much current it's drawing, and we'll test the peak and average power. So now we're going to test peak and average output power. Excuse me. Come over here to the watt meter. That's a 2500 watt slug in there, 2500 watt element, if you will. Top scale, the 5 will be 500. The hash mark you see before that, the large hash mark, will be 250. So let's go ahead and key it up. Like I said, around 240 watts. Audio. And around 400 watts average. Now they will do more than that with more drive. We're only putting 30 watts average into it. You come up to 40, 45 watts average going in, you'll see that climb on up to about 500 watts average. Now we're going to go to peak. Check, check, audio, check, check, audio, check, check, audio, check, check, audio, audio. Call that 1,050, 1,100, something like that, give or take. So now all I'm going to do, guys, I'm just going to pause the video. We're going to unhook our little souped up 29 here and put the Connex dual final in line. It does about 20 watts average and about 50 PEP. So we're going to expect to see less output out of it, but just be interesting to kind of see what it does with the Connex. All right, I'm going to put the camera down. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, now we're back with the Connex, and keep in mind, we're really underdriving this thing now. Where it needs 125, 140 watts peak, we're going to be putting 50 into it and only about 20 watts average. To see max output, you want to be around 40 to 50 watts average and 125 PEP, and that's going to put you in that 1100 to 1250 watt output range, and probably around 500 watts average. But that being said, we'll test it with the Connex here. We're kicking 3 watts dead key into it. We'll come over here, key it up. Hello, audio. 75 amps is what it's drawing. Come back over here to the watt meter. We're still on the 2500 watt scale. Matter of fact, we can change that and go to 1,000 since we're driving it with less power. So we'll do a 1,000 watt scale. Now we're looking at the bottom scale. Hello. So yeah, around 200 watts average. Audio. Again, we're severely underdriving it. And now we'll go to peak. Audio test, audio test, audio test, audio, 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 audio. A little bit less than 600. You could run it this way, obviously, and it'll talk all day long like that. You're not putting it in a strain whatsoever. Basically, if you're running it like that, you're getting the output of like a 4-pill 454. But again, guys, to see maximum output out of this thing, I wish I had a driver that did exactly what I need it to do. Kick myself in the butt for selling all my Texas Star modulators and all that stuff, but when people need stuff and I have it, money talks. So, but anyway, if you have the ideal driver for this thing, like I said, I've sold several of these, 125 to 140 watts peak in. You'll see anywhere from 1,100 to 1,250 watts peak out, and around 500 watts average. But nice, healthy amp. It is available for sale. You can run it on a 100 amp power supply. I've sold some to people doing that, especially if you're running your driver on a separate supply. When we had the little 29 hooked up, we were running them both on the same supply, so we had about 7 amps of availability that we were taking up with our 29. So yes, you can run one of these on a 100 amp power supply. It all depends on how hard you want to drive it. If you're running your driver and this on the same supply, I would recommend a 150 amp or 120 amp power supply. So anyway, to the gentleman that I told I would do this video, I will text you first and let you know. And if you're interested, you can get with me. And if this thing sells, I'll mark it sold, guys. And if it doesn't, I will comment and say it's available. But it's a 8-pill 454. Excellent, excellent, excellent shape. Like I said, probably could have passed it for a brand new amp, but we don't do business that way. It has been sold to another customer previously. He did take very good care of it, but it has left here and been in somebody else's possession, so it will be sold as a used amp. So there you guys go, 8-pill 454. Hope you enjoy the video. Questions, comments, complaints, let me know. Shoot me a text, 423-299-3535. Hope everybody's having a good night and a good weekend. See you, bye.